From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Malacañang announced that the government exceeded its 2025 targets for employment and poverty reduction. This comes as the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. orders additional reforms to the use of public resources, namely for flood control and climate resilience initiatives. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said President Marcos lead the 7th Economic and Development Council or EDC meeting where the economic team reported improved labor market outcomes and continued poverty reduction. According to the economic team, the unemployment rate has dropped dramatically from 10.3% in 2020 to 4.7% in 2025, demonstrating a consistent increase in the number of Filipinos with secure jobs. Underemployment has also decreased dramatically from 16.2% in 2020 to 13.6% in 2025, indicating increased job quality and greater skill matching to job openings. The economic team underlined the administration's goal to creating more quality employment and reducing poverty to single-digit levels by 2028. Data presented at the meeting revealed that 2.4 million fewer Filipinos lived in poverty between 2026 and 2023, with the number of poor falling to 17.5 million in 2023, down from 19.9 million in 2021. Castro said this trend is consistent with the most recent surveys, which shows a steady drop in poverty incidence. The palace source also noted that inflation is controllable, resulting in a more stable environment for growth and household expenditure. During the conference, President Marcos urged government agencies to handle long-standing challenges such as flood control, climate change effects, and external economic pressures. President Marcos also emphasized the importance of reforming public sector funding to avoid a repeat of anomalous flood control initiatives. On climate action, the president emphasized the significance of better forecasting, reaction, and adaptation using current and appropriate technologies. He also advocated for more cooperation with other countries, particularly those in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN, in order to strengthen economic stability and regional resilience.
Pinangunahan ng Pangulo ang 7th Economy and Development Council meeting sa Malacañang kahapon. Ang nasabing pagpupulong, binigyan diin ng economic team ng Pangulo na nalampasan ng pamahalaan ang mga target na naglalayong magbigay ng trabaho sa tao at mabawasan ang kahirapan sa bansa noong nakaraang taon. Noong 2020, umabot sa 10.3% ang unemployment rate sa bansa, na itala ang 4.7% noong 2025. Ibig sabihin nito ay dumarami na ang mga kababayan nating may disenteng trabaho. Ayon din sa economic team, na itala ang underemployment rate na 16.2% noong 2020. Ibig sabihin, maraming mga manggagawa ang may trabaho ngunit hindi angkop sa kanilang galing o sapat sa kanilang pangangailangan. Nitong nakaraang taon, malaki ang ibinaba nito at umabot sa 13.6%. Senyales na mas maraming tao ang nakahanap ng mas angkop at mas sapat na trabaho. Binigyan diin ng economic team na nanatili pa rin ang paninindigan ng pamahalaan na lumikha ng mas marami at mas dekalidad na trabaho at pababain ang antas ng kahirapan hanggang maging single digit ito sa taong 2028. Sa datos ng economic team, bumaba ang bilang ng mga taong naghihirap ng 2.4 million mula noong 2021 hanggang 2023. Naitala ang 17.5 million poverty incidents noong 2023. Mas maliit kung ikukumpara sa 19.9 million noong 2021. Ito ay tugma sa huling survey na nagpakita ng pagbaba ng poverty incidence rate sa bansa. nananatili pa ring manageable ang inflation rate sa bansa. Ipinag-utos naman ng Pangulo na bigyan tugon ang flood control issue, epekto ng climate change at ilang external forces na sumusubok sa ekonomiya ng bansa. Naniniwala ang Pangulo na kailangan magkaroon ng reforma sa paggamit ng pondo ng bayan upang hindi na maulit ang nangyari noong mga nakaraang mga maanumalyang flood control projects. Sa usapin ng climate change, iginiit ng Pangulo na kailangan magkaroon ng maayos na forecasting, response at adaptation ang bansa sa pamamagitan ng angkop at modernong teknolohiya. Binigyan din ng Pangulo na dapat pang palakasin ng pamahalaan ang pakikipag-ugnayan sa ibang bansa, lalo na sa ASEAN upang patatagin ang usaping pang-ekonomiya.
Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Executive Secretary Ralph Recto convened with officials from key agencies to expedite government help to areas affected by natural disasters, emphasizing Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s call for immediate and timely relief. The conference was attended by representatives from the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, the Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, and the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG. Recto emphasized President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s marching instructions, which include ensuring that aid reaches affected families swiftly and on time. Recto additionally stressed the need to simplify the current process for vetting local government units' requests to remove bottlenecks and speed up the release of support. The DBM, OCD, and DILG have committed to collaborating closely to ensure a coordinated and timely response to affected families. Budget Acting Secretary Rolando Toledo, DBM Undersecretary Rhea de la Vega, OCD Undersecretary Harold Cabreros, DILG Undersecretary Marlo Iringan, and DBM Assistant Secretary Ryan Lita all attended the meeting.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang refuted assertions of de facto martial law in the Philippines, stating that such accusations are false and that the rule of law still applies. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro made the comment in response to remarks made by Batangas Representative Leandro Leviste, who claimed that critics of the administration are intimidated or targeted for prosecution. When questioned on whether such words could influence public opinion considering Leviste's popularity, Castro referred reporters to their own experiences. Castro also refuted claims that government critics are being persecuted for exposing corruption, pointing that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has not sought charges against his critics despite repeated accusations.
Not all wrong opinions deserve a response from the palace. Yun lang. Unang-una po, mismong mga taga-media, kayo po na miyembro ng MPC ay makakaramdam kung totoo po ba ang kanyang mga sinasabi. Kung may mga kritiko, makikita naman po natin panay-panay ang pag-akusa, pagbibigay ng mga masasakit na salita na walang katotohanan kay Pangulo. Pero ang Pangulo mismo ay hindi po nagsasampa ng kaso. Kung lumalabag po sa batas, ang sino mang mga nagsasalita o may ginagawang aksyon, nararapat lamang po na sila ay makasuhan dahil po may batas na umiiral sa atin.
Senate President Pro Tempore Panfilo Lacson denied assertions of a de facto martial law, stating that he has not seen the government take any efforts to repress critics. He noted that if such a circumstance existed, critics would have already faced repercussions.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the Philippine government will not interfere in the pre-trial proceedings of the International Criminal Court or ICC involving former President Rodrigo Duterte. This came after the ICC Pre-Trial Chamber 1 announced on Monday that Duterte is deemed fit to stand trial, allowing pre-trials to open February 23. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the matter is solely within the jurisdiction of the ICC. She said that the administration of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. respects the processes of international bodies. The president has no intention of intervening in the case. The palace has consistently maintained that it is leaving the matter to the ICC based on its own rules and procedures.
Ang nagpasya po niyan ay ang Pre-Trial Chamber 1 ng ICC. So kung ganyan po ang kanilang proseso, hindi po makikialam ang Pangulo at hindi po makikialam ang pamahalaan ng Pilipinas.
Duterte's camp earlier requested an indefinite adjournment of the proceedings, including the confirmation hearing, saying the former president is not fit to participate. A medical assessment by 3 independent experts said otherwise. The confirmation hearing, originally set for September 2025, will determine whether there is sufficient evidence to believe that Duterte, who will turn 81 in March, committed the crimes charged. Duterte is suspected of the crimes against humanity of murder and attempted murder, allegedly committed in the Philippines between November 2011 and March 2019 in the context of the War on Drugs campaign. He was arrested on March 11, 2025 and was taken into custody by the ICC in The Hague.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. remains in good condition and is holding private meetings at the Malacañang Palace in Manila upon the advice of his doctors, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said. In a Palace Press briefing, Castro said the 68-year-old president has been advised to take things easier for the time being after experiencing discomfort last week. Castro nevertheless clarified that President Marcos's condition is stable and not a cause for concern. Castro said President Marcos is limiting public engagements as part of his doctor's instructions. Despite this, she emphasized that Marcos continues to fulfill his duties and remains fully engaged in overseeing government affairs.
Dito
Gusto po
muna,
ang Pangulo.
private meetings muna, maayos po ang kanyang kalagayan. At ito ay isa sa paraan ng kanyang maaaring pag-uutos ng kanyang doktor na maghinay-hinay ng konti. Pero still, kahit sinabihan na siya ng kanyang mga doktor, patuloy pa rin po ang kanyang pakikipag-meeting dito po sa palasyo.
President Marcos was brought to St. Luke's Medical Center in Quezon City on the evening of January 21 after experiencing discomfort and was diagnosed with diverticulitis and inflammation of small pouches or diverticula in the colon. In a video message, January 22, President Marcos allayed fears about his health, saying his condition is not life-threatening. Castro on Monday also dismissed as fake news the claims that President Marcos needs to undergo surgery, saying the chief executive has already returned to his regular work.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said it is premature to discuss proposals to form a new political alliance similar to the UNITEAM that backed Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in the 2022 presidential elections. The statement was issued after former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV suggested that Marcos's loyalists forge a coalition with the so-called kakampinks of former Vice President Maria Leonor, Leni Robredo to defeat the Dutertes in 2028. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the matter has not been brought to the attention of the President. Asked if the palace is open to working with members of the opposition or former election contenders, Castro declined to comment. She said it is too early to give any position on the matter.
Wala pa po na pag-uusapan patungkol po dyan. Hindi pa po nababanggit sa Pangulo ito. So wala pa pong response. Wala po tayo masasabi sa ngayon. Maybe it's too early to comment on that.
Sobrado served as the 14th Vice President of the Philippines from 2016 to 2022 under the Duterte administration. She ran for president in the 2022 elections but lost to Marcos.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang applauded House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos for voluntarily withdrawing from impeachment proceedings against his father, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., describing the decision as proper and statesmanlike. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the young legislator's choice to withdraw from proceedings on an impeachment case against his own father demonstrated integrity and respect for democratic institutions. When queried if the president instructed his son to refrain, Castro stated that the chief executive did not meddle with the Ilocos Norte representative's activities. Castro further said that Representative Marcos understands his legal responsibilities as an elected official. Following the filing of a second impeachment accusation against the president on Monday, the House Majority Leader announced his decision to recuse himself.
Yes, the act of Congressman Sandro Marcos inhibiting himself voluntarily from this issue, especially regarding the impeachment complaint filed against his own father. It is a hallmark of a statesman. It shows his character, it shows his decency, and we believe that it is the right thing to do. Hindi po nakikialam ang Pangulo sa mga anumang aksyon na gagawin ng kanyang anak dahil ang alam po niya, kailangan lamang pong tumpad ng kanyang anak sa mandato. Bilang public servant, alam po ni Congressman Marcos kung ano po ang sinasabi ng batas at ano po ang dapat niyang gawin.
Press Officer, Communications Undersecretary, Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said it is looking into reports that a Filipino national was among Russian troops killed in Ukraine. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the government has yet to receive official confirmation regarding the report. Castro said Palace will first verify the details surrounding the reported incident, noting that the government needs to establish the full context. According to reports, Ukraine's military intelligence identified the Filipino national as John Patrick, who had served in Russia's 9th Assault Company of the 3rd Battalion of the 283rd Regiment of the 144th Motorized Rifle Division in the 20th Combined Arms Army of the Russian Armed Forces. The HUR said a Filipino national, like many foreign fighters, was killed during what it described as a meat assault or heavy attack near the village of Novoselivka in the Kramatorsk district, Donetsk region. She noted that the matter would be coordinated with the Department of National Defense. The Department of Foreign Affairs is also verifying the report.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, said it is validating intelligence reports that a Filipino citizen allegedly fighting for the Russian side was killed during the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, in a message to reporters, said they are coordinating with the relevant government agencies and official counterparts to verify the details. Ukraine's military intelligence reported on Monday that a Filipino national identified as a certain John Patrick was killed fighting with Russian forces. The agency, in a statement posted on Telegram, said the man had served in Russia's 9th Battalion, 283rd Regiment, 144th Motorized Rifle Division, 20th Combined Arms Army of the Russian military. It said the Filipino national, like many foreign fighters, was killed during what it described as meat assault or attacks on Ukraine positions with high casualty rates. Ukraine and Russia have been at war since the latter launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, sparking Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DENR, is open to amending the country's solid waste management law, promising to conduct a thorough review of its implementation following the deadly landfill collapse in Cebu. DENR Secretary Rafael Lutilla said the Republic Act, RA 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, remains sound in principle since its passage in 2000, but acknowledged gaps in its implementation, adding that changing conditions now require a more critical reassessment. He said the DENR is participating in congressional discussions on proposed amendments to RA 9003, including measures that would clarify the use of newer waste management technologies while strengthening accountability across the waste chain, from households to local governments. Lutilla said he has ordered a comprehensive review of how the law is being implemented nationwide, including a detailed inspection of all operating sanitary landfills to reassess their safety, remaining lifespan, and compliance with environmental standards. While routine monitoring is already in place, he said many landfills were approved under assumptions that no longer hold amid the increased waste generation, extreme rainfall, and seismic activity. The Environmental Management Bureau, EMB, in coordination with the Mines and Geoscience Bureau, will re-examine slope stability, overcapacity issues, and geological risks. Beyond infrastructure and policy reforms, Lutilla emphasized the need for stronger enforcement of segregation at source, which remains inconsistent despite high reported compliance among local governments. Of the country's 1,642 local government units, 1,515 or 92% have submitted the required 10-year-old waste management plans, and still only about 53% of total waste generated nationwide is disposed of in sanitary landfills, with the rest of often improperly managed. Lutilla said, as the department reviews implementation and weighs possible amendments to RA 9003, the DENR's focus will be on preventing another tragedy while making the country's waste management system more resilient, accountable, and responsive to present-day realities.
Dateline Malacañang.
Okay, we are temporarily interrupting our Dateline Malacañang newscast to give way to, this is supposed to be Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s attendance at the Pagpupugay 2025 Parangal sa Mga Lingkod Bayani, which is represented by Executive Secretary E.S. Recto.
Mula sa Presidential Communications Office at Radyo Pilipinas, ito ang Presidential Live Event. Presidential Live Event.
Juanito Victor Remulla Jr., Secretary Renato Salidum, Secretary Logan, Civil Service Commission Chairperson Marilyn B. Yap, CSE Commissioners Ryan Alvin R. Acosta, and Luis Minrado Pangulayan, our awardees of the 2025 Outstanding Government Workers, fellow workers in government, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Isang karangalan po para sa akin na tumindig sa harap ninyo ngayon bilang kinatawan ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Taos-puso po siyang nakikisa sa pagkilalang ito para sa ating mga lingkod bayan. Bagamat hindi natin siya makakasama ngayon, ipinapaabot niya ang kanyang mainit na pagbati at pasasalamat sa lahat ng mga bayani ng serbisyong publiko. Kaya't hayaan po ninyo akong ihatid ang mensahe ng Pangulo para sa inyo. Ulit, magandang umaga sa inyo lahat at isang mainit na pagtanggap sa Malacañang. Ipinagdiriwang natin sa araw na ito ang puso ng pamahalaan, ang mga kawaning tahimik na naglilingkod para sa sambayan ng Pilipino at sa bansa. Sa Civil Service Commission Honor Awards Program, kinikilala natin ang mga kawani ng gobyerno na mahusay sa kanilang tungkulin at huwaran sa prinsipyo. Hindi naman may kakaila na sa pamahalaan, mas madalas nating napapansin ang mga nasa matataas na posisyon. Ngunit alam naman nating lahat na sa bawat programa na ipapatupad at serbisyo na ihahatid, naroroon ang sipag at malasakit ng mga lingkod bayan katulad ninyo. Sa okasyong ito, 3 kategorya ng parangal ang ikagawad natin para sa 2025 Outstanding Government Workers. Una, ang Gawad Lingkod Bayan ng Pangulo na ipinagkakaloob para sa mga naghatid ng natatanging kontribusyon na may malawak at pangmatagalang epekto sa kapakanan, seguridad at yaman ng bansa. Dito kinikilala natin ang mga inisyatibo na naghatid ng pagbabago. Halimbawa rito ay ang mga programa para sa kabuhayan at kooperatiba ng mga mangingisda. Gayon din ang mga tumulong sa pagtatayo ng mga sentro ng inobasyon upang palakasin ang mga lokal na negosyo. Kasama rin dito ang mga muling bumuhay sa ating industriya ng abaka matapos ang mga kalamidad at sakit na sumira sa mga taniman na nagbigay ng pag-asa sa ating mga magsasaka. Ikalawa, ang Gawad Dangal ng Bayan para sa mga kawani ng gobyerno na nagpakita ng di matatawarang paglilingkod at patuloy na pagtalima sa Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Kinikilala natin ang mga kawaning tapat sa kanilang gawain, paghahatid ng serbisyo sa mga pinakaliblib na komunidad. Para rin ito sa mga naglunsad ng mga programang nagligtas ng buhay ng mga ina at sa mga nagtaguyod ng mas maayos na healthcare system sa probinsya. At ikatlo, ang Gawad Pag-asa na ating ibinibigay sa mga kawani na nagpakita ng natatanging husay sa trabaho at nag-iwan ng kontribusyon na ramdam sa higit pa sa isang ahensya ng ating pamahalaan. Dito kinikilala natin ang mga proyektong bunga ng dedikasyon, tulad na lamang ng paglikha ng mga kagawitang pangkaligtasan para sa mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng lindol at ang pagsulong ng seguridad sa pagkain at makakalikasang kabuhayan. Kasama na rin dito ang mga nagpalakas sa suporta para sa ating mga magsasaka upang ihanda ang ating mga komunidad sa climate change. Para sa lahat ng tumanggap ng parangal ngayon, kayo ang patunay na ang diwa ng tapat na paglilingkod ay buhay sa ating pamahalaan. Sa gitna ng dilim at ingay, kayo ang hibla ng liwanag na nagbibigay pag-asa sa ating sambayanan. Kayo ang patunay na maraming mabubuting empleyado sa ating pamahalaan. Kayo ang patunay na hindi kailangan maging tanyag upang tumulong sa bayan. At kayo ang patunay na anumang antas ng tungkulin, may kakayahang ang bawat isa na maglingkod ng may dangal. Naniniwala ako na hanggat may lingkod bayang katulad ninyo, mananatiling matatag ang ating republika. Sa ngalan ng sambayan ng Pilipino, maraming salamat sa inyong katapatan, sipag at malasakit. Patuloy ninyong isabuhay ang diwa ng bagong Pilipino. Disiplinado, mahusay, at mapagmahal sa bayan. Muli, congratulations sa lahat ng awardees. Mabuhay ang mga kawani ng gobyerno. Mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas. At ito po ang talumpati ng Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Muli sa ngalan ng Pangulo at ng buong pamalaan, taus-puso po naming binabati ang lahat ng ating 2025 outstanding government workers. Araw-araw, patuloy nating ipakita na ang pamahalaan ay handang paigtingin ang tungkulin nito para sa bayan. Gawin natin ang ating trabaho ng may husay at may dangal, kahit sa gitna ng maraming ingay. Laging piliin ang tama, laging isapuso ang obligasyon sa bayan, at laging unahin ang taong bayan. Patuloy po sana kayong magsilbing inspirasyon sa buong hanay ng ating birokrasya at sa susunod na henerasyon ng mga lingkod bayan. Maraming salamat po, mabuhay kayo lahat, at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Thank you, Executive Secretary.
You just listened to Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s speech at the Pagbubugay 2025 parangal sa mga lingkod bayani, which was read by Executive Secretary Ralph Recto.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.